Hello, and welcome to Media Musings, brought to you today both by my two patrons, Santi the Sane and GeoSam, and as well as Jen's fundraiser, which can be found in the description description below.
Yeah.
And also, hello to anyone who may be watching in the future or who are currently lurking in the chat. So, this week we're talking about Deadpool 2, which is a family movie.
Damn it! Do you know what I just realised? I've got a Deadpool.
I nearly kept a straight face.
Damn it! I just remembered that I've got a Deadpool T-shirt myself, and I'm not wearing it.
Well, I've got two of them.
Well, I've only got one. Give me a. I'm not going to change now, but I'm going to see if I can find it in a second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're actually my only superhero themed shirts, which needs to be needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Yes, we need to fix that. Oh, that's your birthday sorted.
There's Yep, there you go. That's settled that one then.
Yeah. Also need to get my hands on Left Hand of Darkness before June or July.
One thing at a time.
Yeah. So that's another option.
Yeah.
And hello, Tusk. Tusk has Deadpool Tusk got Deadpool jammies for Christmas.
Hold on, actually, I just looking at my Deadpool T-shirt a second, Ring. I got a feeling my T-shirt is the very same one you are currently wearing.
Yeah.
It's different hand. It's got a slightly different background, but it's pretty damn close.
It's near enough. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar T-shirt.
Yes.
Great minds.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a present from someone as well. So, do you know? I just realized I didn't watch. Yeah, I didn't watch it this week. I watched it a couple of weeks ago, though, because I was preparing for us to do Deadpool. And so, well, what do you do once you watch Deadpool? You watch Deadpool 2.
Yes.
Yeah, gotta say, I'd forgotten what an emotional roller coaster this movie is.
Yeah.
I gotta say before we I got to say something before we even jump into the movie itself.
Yeah.
And that is, this movie had the greatest campaign for trailers I have ever seen.
Yeah.
The trailers and teasers. I mean, the Bob Ross one was fantastic.
Yeah.
The
Superman spoof.
The Superman spoof with the phone booth was hilarious.
I think it was Stan Lee getting mugged.
Yeah. Oh, no. Stan Lee was just there. Nice outfit. Zip it, Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The vigil at Logan's grave.
Yeah.
Is hilarious. And because people, I'm sorry for giving spoilers away for the film Logan here, but there is something what happens. It's almost it's almost as if this is a post-credit scene for Logan, almost.
Yeah,
but
almost.
I love Deadpool's there, and then I love the fact that his phone goes off, and it's the theme for the X-Men cartoon.
I will say, since we are talking about a movie from 2018, if you don't like spoilers, there will be spoilers because you can't really discuss the themes of a piece without delving into spoiler territory.
Listen, if you're watching Media Musings, you've kind of got to expect spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers, for future reference, spoilers are a given with this show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is just, it is.
It is what it is.
Um,
Well, it's a 3-year-old film. I mean,
yeah.
it's not like it came out last week. So I think 3 years is fair cop.
Also, I didn't put this up for last week's because, last week's was much jokier. And didn't really it made it was more a satire of the superhero genre.
Mm.
While this one does dig into some themes and is more pointed at is more pointed. So I'm just going to put up a blanket trigger warning.
Yeah.
Given some of the subject matter that we will be delving into.
Yeah. Because that poor kid.
Yes.
In several situations, that poor kid.
Yeah.
So
if you're easily triggered by, discussions of child abuse, this is not the episode for you. We will not be explicit in our discussion, but it is one of the themes of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say I think we'll say child abuse reads into that what you will, because we I'm reluctant to go further than that because YouTube doesn't like certain words, and I don't want to get Ring stream shut down.
Oh, okay. I'll go out and say it. If this gets me shut down in the first 10 minutes, then so be it. Deadpool 2 takes the mutants as LGBT allegory and takes it to its logical R-rated logical R-rated conclusion by featuring an analogy for a gay conversion camp.
Yeah.
So, like I said, blanket trigger warning for this episode.
And you should probably be aware as well that the levels of abuse, there are some, I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, the quote-unquote conversion camp, the orphanage, has some, there was some insinuations in there that it was a little bit Catholic. Let's put it that way.
That was kind of what I was hinting at. What I said a minute ago. I was like, Amanda, I don't think he was in this. Brad Pitt, I don't recall him being in Deadpool 2. Maybe he was a cameo or something. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't recall it.
Maybe Deadpool 2.
I know it's Josh Brolin plays Cable.
Which is kind of funny because Deadpool calls Cable Thanos.
Yeah.
It's a cameo. He's actually in it as a cameo. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's in it as Vanisher.
Oh, of course. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Because I know that there was talk about Brad Pitt for playing Cable at one
but
point.
scheduling conflicts.
Yeah.
Well, I think Josh Brolin did a good job.
Yeah, he did a good job, but scheduling conflicts is why we didn't get a Brad Pitt as Cable.
I think that's probably for the better.
That's probably one of those good little happy accidents of history, like how Tom Selleck was going to be cast as Indiana Jones, but scheduling conflicts with Magnum meant they just gave it to Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
You know?
that was a happy accident. A very happy accident.
A very happy accident.
Yeah. So, anyway, movie starts.
Yeah. And Deadpool is lying on gallons of high-grade jet fuel. Now, I will say there is, like, okay, so since we are, starting with the, beginning of the movie, and it's something that happens at the beginning of the movie, well, a few minutes into the beginning of the movie.
Again, another trigger warning for this bit.
One of the main... Yeah, one of the main problems I have with the with Deadpool 2 is the fact that they fridged Vanessa.
Yeah.
I don't honestly, though, I don't like. I have trouble figuring out how they could have worked the plot the way it did. How the plot would have worked without fridging Vanessa, but it was a problem.
Yeah. And to be honest, I was kind of excited about seeing Vanessa because she was fun in the first movie.
Yeah.
She held her own basically a building site full of superheroes. She held her own, and she put up a damn good fight. So I was kind of annoyed at that. But I can see why they did it from a sort of plot point of view.
Well, also from a plot and to a, Deadpool 2 was, like, aside from, taking the allegories to the logical conclusion, which should have been done in the other X-Men films, the X-Men films kind of failed at the analogy past, like, tokenism.
Yeah. But then they weren't R-rated, so
yeah. But
you can see
another thing is Deadpool 2 was basically trying to reconnect the X-Men franchise with its comic book roots.
Yeah.
And in the comics, Deadpool has an on-again, off-again relationship with death, and that's why he had a rather long sub-arc about him just wanting to die so he could be with death.
Yeah. And so in this, Vanessa becomes
death.
Death character.
Yeah.
So in the comics, basically, he's fighting Thanos for Death's affections.
Yeah.
I think as well, we're not going to get very far into this stream, so I'm going to say it first.
Yeah.
The Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Terminator.
Well,
say them all.
And actually, so, Deadpool and Cable have a long, running history with each other. In fact, they had a long running series where they were, that was just Deadpool and Cable. And it works very well because Cable is basically a personification of the 90s edgelord superhero.
Yeah.
And Deadpool is the satirical parody of the 90s edgelord hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which opens up typical 90s edgelord. He's depressed, he's down, he's out. And
it's
taken to
Spawn type of things.
Yeah.
Like how Spawn's always depressed,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's taken to the extreme of he's trying to literally blow himself away. But with Deadpool, it's a little bit more difficult than most people. And we have our jet fuel.
Yeah.
and it takes that we come in the middle of the story. Same thing that happened with Deadpool 1.
As well as the nod to the friendly or not so friendly rivalry between the Deadpool movies and the Wolverine movies.
Yeah. And that goes on as well, doesn't it? That goes on right through to the end credits.
Yeah. Because, Deadpool's got the Logan desk ornament.
Yeah, that. So plot begins, and we find out the tragic backstory, the typical and again, this is why this movie, to me, if Deadpool 1 was a satire of comic book heroes, Deadpool 2 is a satire of sort of the 80s action flick.
Yeah.
Very much so. It's got to have a tragic backstory. It's got to have this, it ticks the box. It's a bit of an A-team. It feels almost like a little bit of an A-team thing going on with it.
I think just like one of the very good things is sort of near the beginning where you're getting through Deadpool going for those, really brutal fight scenes.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've got Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 as that is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's one of those things that if you know nothing about Deadpool, that is enough to explain it to someone.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
That song, Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, is I guarantee you, every person who identifies as female has at some point woken up in the morning, played that song while applying their war paint at the start of what's going to be a really rough day and has gone to war to that song. That is one of those songs that gets you up and bouncing. And it's designed that way, but it's absolutely beautiful because again, we talked a lot about it last week about this whole, the way Deadpool plays with gender and sexuality.
Yeah.
This idea of this basically girl power song.
Yeah.
But it's Deadpool.
Yeah. And, Deadpool just doing what Deadpool does, i.e. being a contract mercenary who takes out the bad guys.
Yeah. And
insert Epstein joke here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I note, and during the first montage, in some of the more hand-to-hand fights, I was it just me, or did it look like the choreographers and cinematographers lift a bit from Kingsman and John Wick?
Yeah, there were a couple of nods in there to sort of the sort of kung fu action flicks as well.
Yeah.
I think the whole point is this is the everyman fighter. Yeah. I think what I love about Deadpool is, other than the fact that he heals incredibly quickly, he's no different a fighter or anything than any other well-trained mercenary. Like, Deadpool and John Wick are basically they're pretty much the same character, but Deadpool's got that one extra thing.
Yeah.
And it's his superpower is not his strength or anything else. It's I heal really quick.
Yeah, I don't die.
I don't die. Which it gives him that everyman feel. We talked about this when we did John Wick, and I said if he was a superhero, he'd be, he'd make a great superhero because you could identify with him because there's nothing special about him.
Yeah.
I and I think because I know one of the first Deadpool film was kind of criticized for maybe not giving enough sort of references to the fact that Deadpool's pansexual. Well, this film definitely does make some references as well.
You're such a flirt in this one.
Yeah.
And during this during this fight, we get a first little bit of, in an offhand joke, we get a little bit of foreshadowing into one of the themes of the movie, which is institutions that, harm children under the guise of trying to help them, where Deadpool wipes his face and says, and looks up and sees something and says, Scoutmaster Kevin?
Oh, yeah, that was... We all know what that was a joke about.
Yeah.
Now, definitely, that's again, if you're going to make an R-rated film, you may as well go all the way with it.
Yeah.
And I think even now to pop jokes like that would be very brave.
Yeah.
3 years down the line. Probably even more so now. Now we know the depth of it.
Yeah.
But that just tells you how on the money these films were, and how I think intelligent the writers were, that they could pop a joke like that made us all groan. But this film had a very pointed political point to make.
Yeah.
This film is the manifesto.
Yeah.
Like if the first film was the campaign, but this is the manifesto, this is the meat of it. This is what Deadpool really is about.
Yeah.
And this is I don't want to call it the thinking man's Deadpool, but like the first one, it was a laugh. There was some, but this one goes deep.
Like, I'll put it this way: Deadpool 1, the first Deadpool, has a lot better general jokes.
Yeah.
Deadpool 2 has more meat to it.
Yeah. Deadpool 2 is, I think this film, thinking back to 2018, said pretty much everything everyone was thinking about the things that were in the news and that were going on.
Yeah.
And it did it in such a way it got away with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the best kind of subversion, though, isn't it? That when you can sort of slide things like in there that people can kind of get it, but you're not bashing people over the head with.
Yeah, I mean,
stuff. That is the best kind of. That there's enough people who will get it, but it's not like you're being, which is I think is a lazy tendency. I think with some fiction writing in for TV and films where they try and make a political point, but they will bash you over the head with it.
Yeah.
To instead of just run and move on. Yeah.
And instead of just sliding it in there.
Yeah.
Which is the way, it's just a good way of doing it,
And like I was watching it a couple hours ago, and so basically the only reason I caught that joke as foreshadowing was because I was watching it with an analytical, rewatching it with an analytical mind, to deconstruct it for this episode. Otherwise, casual watcher, it's a blink and you'll miss it joke.
It is a blink and you'll miss it joke. I have to say, when I first watched that film, because I think we watched that film together, didn't we, Ring, the first time?
Yeah.
I picked up on that joke immediately, and I was just like, oh, this is a different kind of film. But what I liked about it, I think, is it set an expectation of the audience. And it's quite rare that films don't talk down to their audience. Now, how you were talking about bashing it over the head.
Yeah.
It's the case of it doesn't do that, and it expects you to get the joke without having to have it explained. And that's a carryover from Deadpool 2, where you get the joke and that's it. And if you don't get it, tough. There's a sort of a tradition in humour in the last, I'm going to say 40 years of explaining the joke.
Yeah.
Whereas Deadpool doesn't do that. Deadpool goes back to...
where the joke is pointing out the fact that there's a joke to be made.
Yeah. Whereas with this, it's just, no, there's the joke. If you don't get it, tough.
Yeah.
Move on. Like that, like there's the great, the tradition, there's that great joke, stand-up comedian. If you didn't know what a Sicilian defence in chess was, you didn't get the joke, and tough.
Yeah.
It expected a certain level of intelligence and a certain knowledge from you.
Yeah.
And that's what Deadpool does here. It expects the audience to be aware of what's been going on around them in the world.
Yeah. And so his cavalcade of killing takes him back home, a few minutes before he needs to be home for his anniversary with Vanessa.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the scumbag he's chasing has a panic room.
Of course. Which is just... if you're going to do it...
Yeah.
Again, it's like they've got this tick box of things we must put in this movie.
Yeah.
But lampshaded everyone along the way.
Yeah.
So obviously then he goes, he decides he's going to try and kill Deadpool.
Yeah.
And then accidentally kills Vanessa, which was not the target, but
yeah.
And and this is where the thing where we kind of get into the
this is Deadpool's "you killed my dog" moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is the moment where you sort of like, okay,
but
shit just got real.
But even then, they take humor with it.
Yeah.
In the end, after
as he goes to see Blind Al, and Blind Al tells him, "You haven't lived until you've died a little."
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's very deep.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's not just going around like dark and brooding, killing people like a sort of John Wick or something. The fact that he gets it, and then he's like wants to put his arms around someone because he's upset,
Mm.
Well, no, he puts his arms around the guy,
and
then steps in front of an ambulance. To try and take them both with,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that traditional thing, isn't it? When someone's ready to go, they'll take someone with them.
Yeah.
And it plays into that trope.
I think Dog said something good in the chat that it's Deadpool 2 is layered as fuck. Every time I watch it, I see and hear something new. Yeah, you do. I've watched it a few times, and it's kind of, you do sort of pick on something new. And I think this is interesting doing this stream today. That, you guys already probably have picked up on things that I've missed, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with this film as well, just to touch on the theme of grief through this film.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really, really good depiction of what grief does to you.
Yeah.
And I think I like the fact that it's unflinching.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from as bad as grief can get. And
that does bring us to whereas in the first Deadpool movie, Deadpool, Wade Wilson was a foil for everyone, essentially. In Deadpool 2, you have Deadpool and then you have Cable as the foil, and they're both dealing with their grief in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Cable, like I said, he is more the dark and brooding type, he is.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's even in the trailers, you kind of got this joke, which is the kind of wink to the audience. Oh, so dark. You sure you're not part of the DC universe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I think they are two sides of the same coin. They're two extremes.
Or rather,
they
two
are the
sides
two
of the same skee ball token.
Yeah, if you like, yeah. But it is that, and the thing is, watching that, what I liked about it as well, I came to that film having been through the worst loss of my life a few years beforehand, and I could see that journey happening on screen that you go through.
Yeah.
That journey of you really do actually cling to the smallest things as sentimental items, the weirdest things you'll cling to. You know, you get angry, you get moments of anger and annoyance, and moments where you just want to step in front of an ambulance.
Yeah.
You know, these are, and to see it play out so honestly, I think this is one of the most honest depictions of grief I've seen in cinema in a long time.
Yeah.
And I know it's an R-rated film, but if you want to explain to someone what it's like to grieve like that, and I think the fact that it's got humor in it as well makes it more real. Because when you lose someone, life is not just ho-hum, darkness and rain forever. There are moments of laughter, and it made it more poignant for me watching that happen. Whereas, you know, everyone's watched a sappy movie that's grief from beginning to end and just misery.
Yeah.
Doesn't hit the same way as this does, because this is just life. And because he's still got that sense of humor. And we saw what he went through in the first film and kept his sense of humor, but this, he got so bad, he was that miserable and he couldn't maintain his sense of humor.
And
this loss mattered more to him than anything else.
In the part of this, you know, the fact that he's dealing with this grief, he's attempted to kill himself unsuccessfully. And I suppose it's kind of Colossus is trying to give him a purpose, you know.
Yeah. Also, noted. Colossus mentioned a specific time, period of time that Deadpool was out of it.
Yeah.
Did you pick up on that?
Yeah. Yeah. So that explains. Yeah, that explains a lot.
What I'm saying is Deadpool is a better Jesus than Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. 3 days. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 days.
I can't remember what part of the film it was in, but I know it was at the X Mansion. Because there was a sort of joke in the first one where the only people there are Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. It's like, where is everyone? And then the fact that you've got that little thing for like Professor X, Beast, and all the other mutants in this room, and they're trying to no, we don't want to talk to Deadpool, you know.
Yeah, they're all hiding from Deadpool.
It's like, we don't want to talk. We don't want to fucking deal with him. Yeah.
But he's just. It's really hard to discuss Deadpool 2 and not get massively serious about it.
Yeah.
I will say, I know Colossus meant well, but he was fucking irritating. The only reason that's the whole thing with Colossus, though. He means well and he tries to be good, but he's a preacher. He's so preachy.
He's preaching, but he does that in the first film, though, because I mean the fact that he's giving Wade that big lecture at the end of the first film, isn't it, about whether he should, because he's thinking of executing half, 4 or 5. He's like. He's giving this big lecture at what it means to be a hero, and he's just like, bang, you borrowed the fuck out of me, kind of thing.
Yeah, can we not?
But you know,
and I love
Deadpool. Deadpool and Colossus have a mission, and this is where we start to really get into the mutants as LGBT analogy, and of course, in the most Deadpool-esque way, he does it. The movie does it by bringing up what the X-Men used to be in an analogy for.
I was just waiting for. I just love that quote. Yeah. Hey, where the X is? I can't remember. I'm probably butchering the quote because I can't. But paraphrasing, hey, we're the X-Men. Allegory for racism in the '60s.
Dated allegory for racism in the '60s.
Which the X-Men, the X-Men were. Absolutely.
That's the thing, though. The X-Men can be applied to sort of as an allegory to any minority group. Since the '60s, it could be racism in the '60s. It became homophobia in the '80s and '90s. You could easily apply it to transphobia now.
I definitely was going to say trans. Is that the little segue then?
Yeah. So
we've got to get it in there. We have to get it in.
We have to get it in there. Go on.
Oh, you're telling me Banner.
Yeah.
Yes. Go on.
Yeah.
Channel punching bag.
Channel punching bag.
Definitely an allegory for transphobia and what happens there.
Let's just say JK's probably not. JK does not want mutants pissing in the same bathroom as her.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
There is actually the joke made about mutants in the same bathroom, isn't there, in this movie? I'm sure there is.
I don't think so.
But I'm sure I remember that from somewhere.
But anyways, so a little bit of history. Because this is where we're getting into this the reprisal and expansion of the mutants as LGBT allegory. So, Stanley originally wrote the X-Men as and the hatred towards mutants as an allegory for racism in the 60s. Now, when Bryan Singer, made the first X-Men trilogy, directed the first X-Men trilogy, they updated it to be to where the mutants are an allegory for being LGBT, because they get their powers during puberty.
Yeah.
And then there's that scene in X2 where Iceman,
Bobby Drake's parents,
where Bobby Drake's mom asks, "Have you tried not being a mutant?"
Yeah, which is very pointed.
Yeah.
But like you said, the other films don't go far enough. And
also after Last Stand, they kind of just tried to, they kind of it was more about rebuilding a franchise. Like the only other one that they didn't really say that much in the other X-Men movies.
But the insinuation is there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, especially you see in First Class, the insinuation is there that at the very least Eric is aware of where this could go.
Yeah.
And is actively, very personally aware of that and is right on the front line to fight it off.
But even First Class and Days of Future Past try and they don't
soften it a bit. Yeah, they don't.
It's more of the general bigotry narrative. They don't make it a specific allegory.
They don't make it specific to LGBT at all. It's still very much a race and culture thing.
Yeah, they kind of brought it back to First Class and the post Last Stand movie, the post Singer movies very much brought it back to just kind of general racism is bad.
Yeah. And I mean, given how things have been going for the last, I'll say 10 years.
Yeah.
On the race front. Yeah, there was good reason for that. And it was reflective of the broader cultural narratives. But it also it was one of those where I think it went too vague.
Yeah,
Like First Class had the very strong, references to Eric's past,
yeah,
which is all well and good, and yes, racism bad, but didn't explore it as far as it should have gone. There were certain hints in there. Eric never turned anyone away. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from, what color you were, what creed you were.
This is why,
as
far as comic book villains go, Magneto's one of my favorites because you can definitely sympathize with his motives.
Yeah, his motives are basically never again.
Yeah. Which, let's be honest, is what has been a cultural motivator in the West for the last 70 years.
Yeah.
It's still, like you said, it's never again. We all say it every November, don't we?
I mean, you can obviously, you could see him as a villain because of the way he goes about things, or the fact that but you can almost sort of say, I understand why he's come to the conclusion he's come to.
But
it is us or them.
But
the thing is, there's a great villain. The villain origin story of starting out as seeking revenge and then going too far, or seeking to protect yourself and then going too far, and the paranoia that it incurs is a fairly common trope. I mean, it doesn't just appear in comic books either. The other one that immediately springs to mind, because it's me, is Hannibal Rising.
Yeah.
And
where
Tuss
he
will
started
probably
out,
talk about that scene when we cover First Class.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to do some next. I think we're taking a bit of a detour from Deadpool too.
I'm bringing.
I'm bringing it back. I am bringing it back.
It's a worthy detour because you got to remember Deadpool is technically part of the X-Men franchise. Technically speaking,
what I'm bringing back is we saw Eric see this, rebel against what he saw as oppression, and then take it too far. Like I said, with the Hannibal Rising, there's the argument for that. But then there's also the argument with the kid in Deadpool that's what the kid potentially grew up to be, and what Cable is trying to prevent.
But anyways, so, brief timeline, Singer era, the Singer trilogy is basically, does the pointed mutants as allegory for LGBT. After Last Stand bombs, Fox kind of pulls back and just kind of makes the X-Men franchise about making X-Men movies and milking the property for all it's worth. Deadpool comes along, revitalizes it, and then Deadpool 2 is like, no, let's bring the Singer allegory back.
Yeah.
Because we find out that the Essex school, or the Essex Institute, which for fans of the X-Men comics knows that Nathaniel Essex is the real name of Mr. Sinister, is basically the X-Men universe version of a gay conversion therapy camp.
Yeah. I will say as well, I think Deadpool 2 was so pointed. Deadpool 1 had to be careful, and even before Deadpool 1 was released, there was a lot of, is he going to be bi? Is he going to be pan? Are they going to give us the representation we're asking for?
Yeah.
And we got it a little bit in Deadpool 1. We saw that he was very, open sexually, Mr. sort of, bit of a flirt. All these sexual positions and everything else were in there, but it wasn't explicit. And it's still not explicit in Deadpool 2. He still doesn't identify his sexuality, but I think that's better because that gives the audience a way in. But the story he's telling is pointedly to say, this is your representation. This is for the kids who have been through this.
Yeah.
Deadpool is your hero. This is the guy who's going to come and he's on your side.
And
he's been there.
And, you know, they have a brief fight. Deadpool knocks out Russell, a.k.a. Fire Fist. Which isn't... I mean, I'm kind of meh on the name.
Nah.
Yeah.
I will... I just... that moment for me of realization when Deadpool realizes why this kid's freaking out.
Yeah.
That's the moment where that's what I mean by Deadpool's a hero for the kids in the audience who need a hero.
And he makes his own 4 or 5 moments speech.
Yeah. And this is his 4 or 5 moments are making he doesn't give a damn. There are some things that are, you know, unforgivable.
Yeah.
And immediately you pass that comment about the scout leader right at the start.
Yeah.
He's saying, I'm putting a stop to this.
Yeah.
This ends now with me.
Like
because
where,
I'm ending it.
You know, where Colossus's 4 or 5 moment speech at the end of Deadpool 1 is where you choose to do the right thing. And it's, you know, it's a much more lawful bent. You know, Deadpool, you know, ends his 4 or 5 moment speech by saying where you choose to do the right thing, no matter how, where you choose to do the ugly thing because it's right.
Yeah.
And then he shoots one of the orderlies. And
that to me that's beautiful to me because that is the truth. It's almost like you've got Colossus, who is this idealized version. And then you've got the down and dirty truth of what it really is to fight for what's right.
It's almost between it's almost like you got Colossus is the idealist.
Yeah.
And Deadpool's the realist.
Deadpool's the realist in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, look, let's get, you know, this, you know, is Colossus's ideals are all very, you know, nice and whatever, but the world isn't like that. It doesn't fucking work this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point Deadpool's making throughout this film of that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, that's what it is. And it becomes, that's the moment where anyone watching that film says, no, if I had to pick between Colossus and Deadpool, I want Deadpool on my side.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy who, when the chips are down, when shit's just got really rough, he's the guy who's going to say, oh, fuck it, let's just sort this out.
Yeah.
And his ideals are not going to hold him back. I think the worst person to have on your side in a fight is someone who's too moralistic, because you never know where their line's going to draw.
Yeah.
Whereas Deadpool's, let's do the ugly thing and get it dealt with.
Yeah.
Let's just deal with it. And he's not afraid to make that step. And it's, you know, sometimes you've got to do the ugly thing.
Yeah.
And for me, that was just... I think there will have been a lot of people in the audience for that film who'd been through the kinds of things that was a very pointed dig at, who would have...
Oh, and it only gets more pointed deeply throughout, you know, as the movie progresses.
But that moment of, no, just put a bullet in his head and just end it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there are a lot of victims out there of various institutions who cheered and cried to that shot.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them in the slightest.
Yeah.
And it is that thing of sometimes you've got, and this is why that comment right at the start of Deadpool and the scout leader is so important, because sometimes you've got to have been the victim of it to understand why you've got to do things you've got to do.
Yeah.
Whereas Colossus has quite clearly lived a bit of a charmed life and is innocent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say naive. I'm going to say innocent.
Yeah.
Whereas Deadpool is just pure.
And it does kind of make nods towards, you know, Colossus's comic origins where he basically grew up on a collective in Ukraine.
Yeah, so he's the hippie child, basically.
Yeah, he's kind of like the backwoods mutant. He's kind of like a backwoods Russian hick.
And he's had it rough, but not anything like.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of an idealized sense of what the world is.
But yeah, he's a farm worker whose mutant power is he becomes strong and indestructible.
Yeah. Which, I'm going to call him innocent. I'm not going to call him naive because that's not fair. But the innocence there, and it is the difference between Colossus and Deadpool is the innocence or lack thereof.
And once again, it hearkening back to like aside from the political and other themes, Scummer.
Yeah, it was a Stalinist collector, so I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it was. Probably comparing it to a hippie commune's going too far in the other direction, but what I'm getting at is it wasn't this nitty gritty urban history we get with Deadpool.
Yeah,
it was as sort of. It was vaguely. He had an idealized way of the way the world worked because of because of his background and origin story.
And Microraptor, Deadpool was created specifically in the 90s.
Yeah. I think he was always bi, wasn't he? And then as the new terminology came through in the noughties and the early 10s.
Yeah,
can fit better.
Yeah, I don't know. The only really romantic relationship I've read, and I've only read like the really early, mostly I've only read the really early stuff, was, just him and Lady Death, which is, literal death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that moment of Deadpool saying, doing the ugly thing because it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, that I know that hit me hard. So I know that has to have hit
and
a lot of people
Slim
hard.
the Living Cyborg slides into the chat right when the cyborg antagonist Cable slides into the plot.
Yeah. Good timing there, Slim.
Yeah.
So we've got the Cable appears. Now, Cable is quite obviously our Terminator plot.
Yeah.
Guy coming into the... It's just... This plot could have been... I was really nervous when I realised what this plot was, which was within about 3 minutes of seeing the guy on screen.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, oh, hell. This is gonna just bomb the whole movie. Because there's very... Like, you can do it right, and then you can do it badly. And pretty much every movie since the first time it was done has been done badly.
Yeah.
Including the sequels to the first time it was done.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh God, here we go. But it manages to... I think it's the weakest part of the plot is this whole time travel and thing.
Yeah.
But we were talking about why Vanessa got fridged.
Yeah.
And it's because Deadpool is the Sarah Connor character.
Yeah.
And therefore there is not the space for that feminine mother figure because Deadpool takes that role.
Yeah.
And
also, there has like Deadpool, in this movie, Deadpool and Cable are mirrored reflections of each other. So Deadpool had to mirror the grief, thematically speaking.
Yeah.
And
so I was listening in whilst I was away, but
yeah,
he is kind of more. I don't know if you say Sarah Connor, more maybe the Carl Reese kind of. As well, you could say, but more Sarah Connor from Terminator 2 rather than the original film. Yeah.
Sarah Connor from Terminator 2.
The Sarah Connor who's a complete badass, which she's not in the first movie.
No, she's not at all. But the point I'm getting at is he's there for the kid. That's what I mean by Sarah Connor. But it is just. This prison that we see them in.
Yeah, the icebox.
Again.
Oh wow!
By the way, you're saying you're dissing like Slim's you're dissing Slim's family here. By the way, we got to be careful.
Oh, really? you have an uncle from the future.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Slim, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where Slim's microchips come from. That's why Slim's so far advanced.
Yeah. So wait. I feel so sorry for you, Slim, because that means your grandpa is Scott Summers, and he is such a wet blanket.
Yeah, but Slim's awesome enough to pick up the whole family tree. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, his great granddad is a space pirate, so
yeah. Can't argue with that. There's got to be one in every family that's a bit of a drip, isn't there?
So, so obviously they end up in the he and the kid end up in.
Yeah, and I do have to say, this prison, I just literally had to stop myself, so I'm going to say it because that probably says a lot. Yeah. I almost came out with it and said, Deadpool and the kid in this gulag.
Yeah.
Though actually...
That's... Yeah.
Though actually, we have like another almost prescient, because the prison is called the Icebox. And we all know about ice and their boxes.
Yeah, we do. And the idea of, there's a lot of nods to the potential for X-Men being a bit of an immigration story as well.
Yeah.
This concept of aliens,
and
being different.
All the guards are apparently working for the Department of Mutant Control.
It's very.
The
whole thing it takes on a really dystopian feel. It's like every sort of last survivors camp in every dystopia end of the world movie ever.
The fact that they put those collars on them that basically takes their powers away.
Yeah, it definitely harks back to the slave collars from Deadpool 1,
which obviously in Deadpool's case is a bit troublesome because he was dying of cancer before his mutation.
So
and the only thing keeping his cancer at bay is his ridiculously quick healing factor.
Yeah.
Well, I always thought his ridiculously quick healing factor, basically his cells mutate at a ridiculous speed. That's cancer. Well, that's what cancer is. It's cells mutating at a ridiculous speed.
So fun fact. At least in the comics, his healing factor basically is kept in equilibrium with his cancer. So if there was actually a story where the Skrulls copied Deadpool's healing factor and put it into a Super Skrull, and the Super Skrull ended up getting way too many cells and exploding.
Yeah. because basically all he's doing is regenerating cells and creating new cells constantly. That is literally, and that is cancer. I do find this duality of Deadpool that his superpower is the thing that's killing him, and always has been. Because he's not, it's there's a really deep philosophical point in there about the fact that what makes him a hero is also the thing that tried to kill him.
And of course, we have a little bit more of the realist versus idealist in that Russell has seen way too many prison movies.
Yeah.
While Deadpool is more of the, Wade is more of the realist and like, no, just keep your head down and wait this out.
Yeah. This is like, no, this is not the time to
to panic. And that there's nods to various prison movies in there. There's again with the R-ratedness of the let's say the sisters, the Shawshank sisters.
Yeah.
And what happens with them. And that, the fact that this kid is that frightened, I think it says a lot. But the fact that that's where that kid's mind went tells you that this is not an innocent kid.
Yeah.
No.
This is a kid who's been through some shit. And you get the impression he knows what the worst case scenario is.
Yeah.
And that's why it scares him, not because he's being told. He's already, been there, done that, and it's the whole prison part of that film I find very difficult to watch.
Yeah.
It's a cross between, I think that prison to me, there's elements of the worst kind of immigration policies on the planet. There's stuff that's pulled that practices in gulags and concentration camps. It's just it's the worst of humanity.
Yeah.
So of course, I just been pointing out we are going to get to a point though where we're going to get introduced to the other character that Ryan Reynolds kind of plays in this movie, or at least provides the voice for.
Oh, I did not know that
he did this. Ryan Reynolds voices the Juggernaut.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Well, of course. Well, it would make sense because he's also the only character with his own theme music.
Yeah. Well, Juggernaut is actually credited in the film as being voiced by himself.
Nice.
Very
Ryan Reynolds actually, Ryan Reynolds did the voice of the Juggernaut in this.
And also this is where I mentioned something, I mentioned it last episode, but this is where we're, taking that pin that I put in it, where the Deadpool franchise, as much as it is about it, about the themes we are exploring, it's about essentially restoring the comic book roots to the X-Men franchise. Because, the fate of the Juggernaut aside, this is the first and only X-Men movie so far to have done the Juggernaut right.
Yeah. I mean, this was obviously Vinnie Jones in Last Stand was fucking. I'm sorry, was fucking bad.
Like if a character has to say what character they're supposed to be,
something
you screwed up.
Yeah, and I think, but that's the thing that's kind of as a casual viewer, that's kind of, I get the impression that's Deadpool's thing. Like, my impression was always Deadpool got made because Deadpool was so bad in Wolverine. Like,
Well,
so it kind of
it's a similar thing. Yeah, Juggernaut
it's fixing the mistakes of the other
was.
movies a lot of the
Juggernaut. I mean, obviously they don't get into Juggernaut's backstory and all that sort of stuff in this, but
there's a nod because Juggernaut says he wears the helmet to keep, or Russell's. So you wear the helmet to keep your brother from reading your mind. He's like, yeah. But he's in a wheelchair, so it's even Stevens.
Yeah.
So that's there.
He is Professor X's brother. For those who do not know, the Juggernaut is. I mean, really, where in Last Stand, he was just he was like the thug kind of sidekick thug, like the muscle, the brain dead kind of muscle that you send.
Which I think, given the comics, kind of does him dirty. Hiya, but better late than never for me showing up, I guess.
Better late than never, Sam.
Yeah, I will say, actually, it's my opinion that Deadpool 2 does X-Men Last Stand better than X-Men Last Stand did.
Yeah,
because they do the cure subplot better with the the conversion therapy camp.
Yeah.
And they also, do the Juggernaut much better. They actually do the Juggernaut some semblance of justice, ignoble and aside.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Juggernaut is an absolute force of nature, and you do not get that impression in Last Stand. I mean, I
think Last Stand kind of just gives you the impression that he's like this thug who has like tough skin, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few characters in the whole Marvel that are, that are just complete forces of nature. Like the Juggernaut's one of them. Like the Hulk is an example. Would be another one. But just absolutely, it is so difficult to stop these characters because they are.
Yeah.
And it is just that actually this. I mean, I would be hard pressed to tell you what Juggernaut did in Last Stand.
Yeah.
Like which character he was.
He said, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch," and then got owned by Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, see, I don't even remember that. That's how
he was just Vinnie Jones. It was Vinnie Jones being like the dumb hired thug muscle. Like
oh, was he the bad Punisher ripoff?
He was just not even that.
That's
not
what
even,
my brain's supplying.
Not even that. He's just the guy who ran through because obviously the Juggernaut can do that, run through, but he was a character that was just a mindless thug, like the mindless thug that is there to be one of the main villains, heavies.
But when you've got Vinnie Jones playing a guy,
yeah. But even that, I mean, I'm not even going to knock Vinnie Jones on that. That was that one.
That was all on the script.
Yeah, it's all on the script, but Vinnie Jones has a type of character he plays.
Yeah, there are certain people you just don't cast for certain characters.
I think there was only one. I'm trying to remember. There was one film I did see Vinnie Jones in where he did do a decent job. Where he played a journalist. I can't remember what it was. And like the only fight scene in the entire movie, he gets his ass handed to him. So it's like the one time where he actually did sort of a pretty decent acting job and was. But yeah, generally you're going to typecast Vinnie Jones. I mean, let's be honest. The guy in real life was a fucking thug.
Yeah.
Anyone who's seen him play football knows he was a bloody thug.
And it is just, it's that, isn't it? He plays sort of South London, well, not even South London, just London kind of thinks is it second cousin to the craze kind of characters he plays.
There's a reason. There's a reason. He was kind of cast in Guy Ritchie movies a lot in his early days. Yeah, the Riddle is about the only thing where I felt he wasn't bad. Like, it is still a crime thriller, but he's not kind of like the one fight scene in that. He gets his ass handed to him. So
yeah.
But
we're getting a little bit
topic.
ahead of
We're
ourselves. So, Cable attacks the prison.
Yeah.
And Deadpool and the kid make it out. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to point to the comments I made about another movie where two people broke out of a prison, but there was unresolved tension that immediately came to the fore the minute it was done.
You didn't say Tango and Cash here.
No,
See,
I'm gonna mention that when we did the stream on Shanghai Noon.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that it was just Deadpool that ended up escaping because the whole point was that Russell was still in there.
Yeah.
And I think that in the breaking out of the prison sequence for Deadpool, they did a very good job of demonstrating like unusual uses for Deadpool's power, including where he like twisted his arm backwards to choke Cable.
Yeah. Or and it was also a great demonstration of why Cable and Deadpool work so well together.
Yeah.
Because
it's really allowed them to play off each other.
Cable is basically the perfect straight man for Deadpool.
Yeah, that's because Deadpool is a satire of everything Cable is and stands for.
Yeah.
See, I was about to make the comment that'll be because Deadpool's pan.
Yeah.
Yeah. That too. But no, because if Deadpool was pan, that would make Cable Ace. Thinking about this now.
I mean, it's very possible to be ace, but be romantic and still enjoy sex. So
yeah, no, absolutely. But just from if you wanted to, talk about binary oppositions, that would be how that would play out.
True.
But insofar as it can play out as a binary opposition when we're talking about sexuality spectrums.
Yeah.
That's about as far from binary as you get, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we got the thing. I'll just say we get things from obviously Deadpool's broken out of prison, and he ends up because he obviously keeps having these visions of Vanessa, doesn't he?
Yeah, where he almost dies, which is, as I pointed out before, a callback to the earlier Deadpool stories where he'd like die briefly to go and see Lady Death.
Yeah. And so he has this vision where she's kind of like says, in a way that ends up convincing him he's got to help the kids.
Yeah.
And we get, I love that we have a team here that is from the 90s is a sort of been a long-standing team in the Marvel comics.
Yeah.
And he puts them together and most of them get wiped out within that's X-Force is put together for the first time.
And I mean, we got some like I'll say D to C tier names.
Yeah.
In there, like names that fans would recognize, and then like not much more than that.
Well, it's like I think it was mentioned earlier because Manda brought up in the chat. Brad Pitt was played as the Vanisher.
Yeah, and the Vanisher was an old, like in the days where X-Men comics were like this is a mutant doing crimes, let's stop them, kind of.
But
the Vanisher was certainly like it was far funnier to me than it should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you had Shatterstar was in there. Zeitgeist said that, so we are really talking D listings, and
Yeah.
Bedlam
Well,
is in there.
and I mean,
And some guy called Peter.
Yeah.
Peter
And
was
we
my
got our-
favorite of the X-Force besides Deadpool and Domino.
Domino. Well, Domino would be. We could also say we get to, because Domino is kind of obviously. You see the title of this stream.
Yeah, the title of the stream.
Yep.
You know.
Mm.
And actually, I will say the best shot sequences are all around Domino's powers working.
Yeah.
Very true. See, I feel like Domino would do really well with like her own TV series.
Yeah.
Yes, Domino's superpower is that she's lucky.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's all sorts of bullshit you could pull with that.
Yeah.
Well, I now obviously you say luck is not a superpower, but another great science fiction franchise explains it very well. Luck is in fact a virus.
I haven't seen this sci-fi series.
It's called Red Dwarf.
Okay, I haven't seen
yeah.
that episode.
Yeah, it turns out things like luck and sexual magnetism or whatever are all things that are technically viruses. Which, you know, so I mean, there's definitely one where Rimmer in a later episode injects himself with the sexual magnetism one.
Yeah.
And they catch like the good, and there's like a good luck and a bad luck virus, you know. So
Yeah.
I think it's one of them. They catch the good luck virus, and all this great stuff happens to them. Like, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, there turns out to be a wind advisory, a high wind advisory.
When they decide to parachute into somewhere.
Yeah, when they decide to parachute down to the convoy.
Always check the conditions before you parachute.
Yeah.
Everyone in the helicopter and everyone not in the helicopter.
This is almost like the Red Dwarf good luck and bad luck viruses, though, because Domino's got the good luck virus. Almost everyone else in the team has got the bad luck virus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how you managed to land in like a wood chipper, you know? When you
parachute, you know.
And I don't know how Domino's luck works, but I do know a similar X-Men character. What? Damn it! He's also from Mojo World. Long Shot. That's it.
And that's the one who can make everything the probability of one.
But
is that the one you're talking about? Who can affect probability?
Well, so Long Shot's deal is, you know, if his intentions are pure, he's really, really lucky. But the downside to that is there's kind of a backlash because apparently there's got to be balance with this kind of thing. So when he has good luck, people around him tend to have bad luck. I'm not sure if that's how Domino's works either.
Domino in the comics, her power is that she's lucky.
Yeah. Domino and Longshot have basically the same power.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I've come across somewhere someone who had the ability to make to screw with probability. Where have I come across that somewhere? Where, you know, anything they tried to do or wanted to do could just fiddle with the probability so it was closer to one and was therefore.
Was that Mr. Fantastic's kid?
Oh. No, Franklin Richards just straight up warps reality.
Oh yeah, that was it, right? Yeah.
Though I do remember a Scarlet Witch before she started straight up warping reality. Her stuff was all probability and stuff.
It might be Scarlet Witch I'm thinking of then, because there is that, you know, if someone said to you, what superpower do you want? Yes, I want to be able to. Yeah. You know, probability, please.
Now, see, something I find really funny is with Domino in the comics, she's Cable's lieutenant. And it is. I think the way it's explained is probability. I'd have to Google to make sure, but I think rather than luck, it is described as probability altering.
Yeah.
Probably.
But
so Deadpool gets out.
So
And
they get in the
And-
chopper, and most people do not make it in the chopper.
yeah.
yeah,
And we learned that people from Mojo World have green blood.
Mm.
Yep. And we learned that you should not send Zeitgeist to help someone who's stuck.
Or
Yeah.
rather, Zeitgeist shouldn't be helped when he's stuck in a wood chipper.
Yes.
we learn a lot of things the hard way very quickly.
Yeah.
Is the answer to just all of this.
And, Domino, being lucky, just manages to parachute directly over the convoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
and it is-
Deadpool, being basically invincible, doesn't really care that he landed really roughly and smacked a billboard.
Yeah. And it is this. We needed the emotional outlet of the farce of that montage
Yeah.
after the
did.
whole prison thing. We really needed.
Oh yeah,
it.
the whole prison thing was very heavy.
Yeah.
and that
So
was
you just
like-
need something to go.
Almost slapstick.
Yeah.
And of course it's lampooning the, build a team movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have the team building montage, and then
And
they
then the
all
image-
immediately
yeah.
die, except for
Yeah.
Deadpool and Domino.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is what would happen in real life if you tried to build a team by putting an advert on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
was
say-
it was very meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like. I mean, I kind of do like the idea of putting a blooming thing out on the internet to advertise as on Craigslist or whatever to advertise. Hey, we're putting a superhero team together. Is
It's not going to go well.
No, it's not. Is it?
I mean,
Let's be honest.
it's a bit like the joke in. I think it's the first of the Michael Bay Transformer movies when they the Autobots first come to Earth, or Optimus Prime is, speaking to Sam about why they're here and whatever. So how do you know? And the question that the boy Sam asked Optimus Prime, how did you know my name and who I am? Says Optimus Prime's answer was eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is just one of those things, isn't it, where it's like we live in this world where you can find out someone's name and details really easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
For better or
mean,
for worse.
You can. I mean, Optimus Prime could probably also just have used Oscent.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's always funnier when there is a magical answer, but it was done in a mundane way instead. It's always funny because it takes that expectation and flips it on its head.
And I will say, Domino was, at least how she's portrayed in the movie, was supremely well acted.
Yeah,
because she just carried, well written and well acted. Because, if you have the power where you're just extremely, improbably lucky, you would carry yourself with that amount of carefree attitude. You
would. You'd go through life and you wouldn't look as you cross roads, and you just have chaos trailing behind you.
Yeah,
as the world altered to suit you, it would. Yeah.
And I think the thing is that not only that, but they did a very good job of making it to the point where her power did stuff, but it didn't overshadow other characters with important powers.
Yeah, and she wasn't overpowered for what she was. It would have been very easy to make her overpowered.
And I love that we have the first major, montage of her power at work as Deadpool is railing about how luck isn't a superpower and how would it even be shown? Like, do you shoot luck lasers out of your eyes?
Yeah. And it just, it's fantastic because, again, it's that irony. It's
like I think that when you let directors get a bit meta, they have lots of fun and that sort of thing.
Well, that's the thing about Domino's power, though. It would be difficult to actually show that power without getting meta.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah. Because otherwise she just looks like she's constantly, in the Matrix in bullet time, which could be anything. But when you add that commentary from Deadpool, that's when it becomes something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is certainly.
But that fight scene is just... There's lots of great girl power moments in this movie.
Yeah.
Not all of them around girls, which is nice. The 9 to 5 moment. Just.
Yeah. We got into that at the beginning. That was perfect. That was just perfect. The 9
and it's
to
just
5.
like, for Deadpool, this is just another day at the office.
Yeah.
And for her, this is just another day in the office, but she is better. She's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Cable, reaches the convoy and there's this fight, the fight scene with Cable and Deadpool again.
Yeah. Which there has to be because counterfoil.
And he, and Cable's doing the target is the only thing that matters thing and like ditching prisoners to die, to smack against the road and die just to slow Deadpool down.
Yeah. It's one of those where you do sort of see, again, it's that single-mindedness of the stereotypical hero.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you watch it a second time as well, like the attitude that you can see in Cable might be slightly different because of information that gets shared about him later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's he doesn't give a damn about collateral damage because he's already been collateral damage. But I saw a meme the other day that really highlights this, the difference between a hero and a villain. A hero will sacrifice you to save the world. A villain will sacrifice the world to save you. But I don't think it's necessarily a good thing that the hero is so willing to just throw away all. It's like, it's
Cable
the
is
extreme
clearly...
of what Deadpool is. Like, Deadpool chooses to do the ugly thing when it's necessary, but Cable just doesn't care.
I feel like
it's beyond caring.
I feel like Cable is the what's it called? The like. Why is my brain not presenting me with this term? I use this term all the time. It's a term meaning like the logical extreme of something.
Yeah, so he's the logical extreme of Deadpool's we have to do the ugly thing because it's right.
Yeah.
Speech.
Well, like where Colossus is the epitome of the Silver Age paragon.
Cable is the exact opposite.
Well, Cable is the epitome of the 90s dark, edgy hero.
Yeah. The quote-unquote anti-hero.
Yeah.
Which is... Go on.
I really like how Deadpool 2 kind of plays off the idea that both of those extremes might have big problems with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it introduces nuance, and that's what I've always liked about Deadpool, is this character has nuance. Because it's satirical, it can be that little bit deeper than, propaganda piece about, let's, like, comic book hero, yay, Superman, Captain America. There's no nuance. Deadpool has some great nuance. especially in this movie. And I don't know about in the comics because I've not read them, but in this movie, the nuances, again, coming to comic book movies from not really having much of a background into it, it was nice to sit and watch a movie and not feel like it was being spoon-fed to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which some
It treats you like an
comic book
adult.
some comic book movies have serious problems with patronizing their audience.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that most comic book movies try and market themselves as like 12s or whatever.
Yeah.
Deadpool makes no bones about the fact that it's R-rated, or I don't know if Deadpool actually is R-rated because we don't use the R rating system. Well, I know
It's an
Deadpool
18.
3. Yeah. I was going to
It's
say, I
an
know it's an
18.
18. I presume that equates, but I don't know if it does.
Well, Deadpool
know-
in the UK was rated 15, the Deadpool, the first movie.
Yeah.
And I think only just a 15 and not an 18. I think the
Oh, yeah.
only reason it wasn't an 18 is because some of the sex scenes weren't as explicit
Yeah, pretty much.
as they could have been.
I know that Deadpool 3, despite being a Disney movie, is going to be R-rated.
Yeah. Our rating in the US is kind of equivalent to our 15 to 18.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's an 18, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think an M rating is more like an 18.
And of course, as the fight ends in a glorious and for a certain character lucky car crash, we get our introduction to the Juggernaut.
And this is the moment where you realize, oh shit, this is not the same. They don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it was like, I think the fact that they'd explicitly mentioned that they were foreshadowing earlier, like, maybe made it easy to assume they were just going to fuck about with this. But then the Juggernaut comes out and it's like, no, fuck you and fuck your legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to rip you in half now. That's such a Juggernaut thing to say.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. And it's this, I think, is the first time in the Deadpool movies where you seriously aren't sure they're going to come out of this fight on the other side.
Oh, yeah. I think
even
Deadpool
the climax of
with...
Deadpool 1, it's Francis. It's just Francis. But this one, you looked at and you're like, oh, shit, are they about to destroy the franchise?
Yeah.
I think the thing is that Deadpool 2 fucked with so many more rules than Deadpool 1 that you didn't know which rule they were going to break next.
Yeah. And does the hero always win? Especially with the dark themes of this movie, you couldn't rely on that being the outcome.
And that is the perfect atmosphere to set up if you are going to introduce the Juggernaut into a story.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think Juggernaut and Cable both belong in this movie.
Yes.
If you're going to do grimdark, that's how you do grimdark. You do it grim and you do it dark. You don't fuck around. And it is that. Oh, hell.
Yeah. And we mentioned it, Deadpool 2 being what Last Stand tried to be. Honestly, I think Deadpool 2 is what a lot of movies try to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the beauty about Deadpool is, to an extent, because, like, Ryan Reynolds fought for it for so long, and the director, the writers, the main lead actor, there's an entire culture of the Deadpool franchise of we just don't care what anyone thinks.
Yeah.
And when you give your director, your writer, and your actor that creative freedom of saying, basically, fuck the authorities, we're going to do it our way, and if they don't like it, they don't have to watch it. And not pandering to the critics, but speaking directly to the audience. That's when you start to see, it doesn't matter how fantastic the story is or how out there the story is, that's when you start to get to talking about real truths and real issues that the audience is going to identify with.
Yeah. And also when the directors and like the management, and because Ryan Reynolds was part of that as well, are willing to take the piss out of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't take yourself too seriously. And that's what this film does really well.
Yeah.
Like, it's a serious film with a lot of issues, but it doesn't take itself too seriously.
And speaking of not, taking itself seriously, we have come to, Deadpool Winnie the Poohing it. With his little baby legs.
Yeah, right, that doodle.
Give me a moment.
Yeah. I may have broken Noodle.
I was about to say we broken Noodle.
Sorry about that. I had to get some bleach and pour it into my ear. Right. Yeah. Winnie the Poohing it.
Yeah.
That's one of those. That is really one of those jokes that's so dark and so farcical. You genuinely don't know how to respond to it.
Also, is the joke is more like the other characters' reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the gag with the blind old lady.
Yeah. Yeah, with Blind Al. I'm so glad I'm blind right now.
Yeah. I mean, how many of us... Old Al said, Blind Al said, I'm so glad I'm blind right now. And about 80% of the audience are going, I envy you right now.
Yeah.
That's what's happening in that scene.
Well, and, it's basically how Deadpool 2 is structured is you have a really, really grim, dark scene. And then you have immediate levity after that.
Yeah. And that meta of them watching him and us watching them, but their actions mirroring our reaction.
Yeah.
It's that meta. It's like, it's not as pointed a fourth wall break as counting walls and 16 walls.
Yeah.
But it's right on in the doorway of the fourth wall is that.
Yeah.
And it's just sometimes you've got to, haven't you? You've
like
got
it's
to.
It's so clearly meta that it's meant to be a fourth wall break, but it's not an explicit fourth wall break.
Yeah. Like there's so much meta narrative going on there. And it's just it's fun.
And Cable shows up as like, yeah, the Juggernaut's involved now. I need help.
Yeah, help. And then we get the actual superhero team up.
Yeah. Including a I had the title of the movie in my head, but I think it's Love Actually, including a Love Actually reference.
Right. Okay. So where are we at now with the bit where I caught a bit of it where I had a bit where he's going back to the X-Mansion to woo
to woo Cable or to woo Colossus.
Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, I suppose, as well.
Megasonic Teenage Warhead is such a fun stereotype.
Yeah.
And well, you forgot about.
I'm gonna have to do it again, just so people know on my wall there. Yeah.
But you also forgot about Yumiko. Hi, Yumiko.
Oh.
Hi, Wade.
I just
the
again, the
enthusiasm
levity
behind
that's
Highways.
just needed.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm behind Highway that her girlfriend is clearly like, don't encourage him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, Highway! It's like, don't encourage him. Like, I will, like, they just, the thing is as well, they're so cute as a couple. They just are okay.
They
You've got
are.
like the happy, joyful,
Yeah.
you know, the
And
flower
my-
girl and the goth.
I mean, my immediate
Um,
reaction was accurate gay representation, and then
Yeah.
these guys are fucking adorable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are absolutely, and it's just so accurate. Like everyone knows, anyone who's like got LGBT friends knows that couple who
Is
are
accurate.
just, yeah. We've all seen that couple. We all know that couple.
Yeah, that actually used to be me and one of my exes back when I still thought I was cis. And
Were you the
he,
flower or the goth?
well, he was, he walked around in a skeleton jacket.
Ah,
I had the nickname Highlighter.
yeah. It is though, isn't it? It's the odd couples thing going
Yeah.
on here. But they were just cute. And it was nice to just see a couple of teenagers in, you know, a relatively harmless, sweet relationship in the middle of all this adult humor and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's just this reminder that there are kids involved here.
Yeah.
And, you
Yeah.
know,
And I think the fact that they kept up is kind of a bit of a possibly a shock value to some people, because it's like, oh, the teenagers are keeping up with the adults here, but this is really dark.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think you get these two, especially in contrast to what the kids are going through at the Essex Institute.
Yeah.
There's quite clearly Xavier's school and the Essex Institute. There's
Yeah. There's a bit of a
parallel.
difference
Well,
between the X mansion and
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what it's.
and
you know.
and of course, like we said, the Essex Institute is essentially the mutant version of a gay conversion camp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which makes the fact that you've got this young, visually lesbian couple all that more poignant, and it's very much a moment of they're for but by the grace of God.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it is that moment of these two things can exist in the same world at the same time, and it's not pulling any punches about how that's the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what life is like as well.
And so we go to the we arrive at the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to say the word climax about a Deadpool movie without snickering?
See, I was trying very hard not to.
Yeah. But,
Deadpool just brings out everyone's inner child, despite being the most adult Marvel movie.
Yeah, no, Deadpool
It's
does
got
just
like-
bring out everyone's 14-year-old teenage boy.
Yeah.
Hey, Beavis, she said climax.
Yeah.
But
Bottom. Like it's the minions laughing at the word bottom, isn't it? It's
Bottom.
it's just yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll say that the scene at the Essex Institute was, or the entire it's more than a scene, but you know what I'm saying. Is probably like there are probably people who watched that confrontation, especially particularly the scene with Domino and the kids, the same way, and got the same sense of catharsis I got from the Kingsman church fight.
Yeah.
This is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is that real sense of someone's putting a stop to this.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant by that catharsis of the moment Deadpool takes the shot earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
There's a real... This whole movie is really cathartic to anyone who's been on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it. The one thing we've not mentioned is Domino's race.
Yeah.
But it adds an extra dimension to the fact that it's Domino
Yeah.
who gets them out. And it really...
And, that was the cosmic reason she had to join X-Force.
Yeah. And that was just her whole thing. That was her raison d'etre. That's just...
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Please don't take this the wrong way, but it's beautiful in a way that's really hard to explain to white people.
Yeah.
I completely understand that. Like, maybe that's just because I grew up in an area that's so highly has such a high density of people of color. But I've seen the way a lot of white people respond to people of color, and I've seen some of the shit that goes on there, and I can see why that would be beautiful.
Yeah. So, she's the rescuer, she's the hero, and it's just... And she doesn't look... she's got the thing on her eye. She's not... There's nothing about her that screams hero.
Yeah.
In Life's Lottery, she's right at the bottom, and yet she's lucky.
Yeah. Basically...
It's...
I
don't have
you
the
have...
words to do it justice, I really don't.
You have Deadpool... saving Russell, the X-Men doing what the X-Men do and stopping the Juggernaut.
Yeah.
And then you have Domino who saved the kids.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it all comes together.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that in a way that Deadpool at the end of this is kind of sacrificing himself as well, though, for the kid.
Yeah.
Whilst he's trying, he's because he initially kind of he doesn't manage to talk the kid around, so obviously Cable takes the shot because he's only given him like 30 seconds or whatever, isn't he?
Yeah.
Mm.
And I will say, basically, in this scene, in this collection of scenes, you have Deadpool taking from the X-Men and sacrificing himself like a stereotypical hero would. And then you have the X-Men taking from Deadpool, or particularly Colossus taking from Deadpool and fighting dirty.
Yeah. And that's important that it's Colossus, because Colossus is that
is
innocent, is that idealized.
He's your stereotypical code of chivalry type.
Yeah.
Must do it by the book.
Not like historic code of chivalry, but Hollywood code of chivalry.
Yes, I meant it in a colloquial sense.
I know. I'm just clarifying. Not to
he's your Silver Age paragon.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Colossus, having heard about his backstory from you guys, no greater zealot than a convert is what's going on there with the whole idealized heroic thing. That's what's going on there. No greater zealot than a convert. So to see him come back from that, and there's
and of course
there's darkness in Colossus's past as well, and you start to see maybe growing beyond the idealized fairy tale he told himself to get through it.
And of course, his last line of that fight is, "That's how we do it in Mother Russia."
Yeah. Which is just a great that just highlights the whole character of like I said, when I was saying earlier that these characters very innocent and rural, that's not to say his life was easy. It's just that it's a different kind of difficult to Deadpool, and a different level of, he's got that innocence Deadpool doesn't have with the whole urban grimdark snark and all the rest of it. But you see you don't survive in a Russian commune unless you've got a trick or two up your sleeve.
Yeah. So, like I said, the X-Men stop the Juggernaut. Domino saves the kids, and luckily has a bus provided by the Juggernaut fight.
She's always nifty.
Yeah.
And
obviously,
Deadpool saves Russell's soul.
Yeah. And then obviously Deadpool has one of the longest death scenes in history.
We're getting to that, but because as the fight's going through the Essex Institute, it hammers in that yes, this is a we are bringing back the Singer allegory, and we're taking it to its logical R-rated conclusion, where you see the religious iconography, and the banner saying "mutant" or "mankind, not mutant kind."
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course,
it's the
Adam and Eve, not
Adam and Steve.
And of course,
very...
the head of the institute had a saying that Russell needed to hear before he killed him.
Yeah.
Blessed are those that are healed by my hand.
Which is gross on several different levels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's the obvious religious undertone.
Yeah.
There's the arrogance of the guy saying it, and the fact that then there's the physical abuse aspect of spare the rod, spoil the child. It's insinuating at. But then there's also the far more R-rated insinuation that
what we said we were giving the blanket trigger warning about at the beginning.
These schools, if we start talking about laundries and Catholic orphanages,
draw your own conclusions on that.
Well, and the little auditorium is very, very church school gymnasium turned chapel.
Yeah, it is. It gave me flashbacks. And the thing is, I'm kind of really glad the movie ended the way it did, and he got the chance to actually. I think it would have cheapened it so much for him not to go on the attack.
Yeah.
After everything we've seen this kid go through, this kid deserved his moment to take back control of his own narrative.
Yeah,
I think that the way they did it works really well because they affect words. They like followed through on their narrative tension without having to deal with a shit ton of fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, the emotional fallout of that movie is going to be insane about 10 minutes after it's finished.
Oh, yeah.
But that's emotional fallout as opposed to having to try and fix a shit ton of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is... again, he needed that catharsis of making the kill.
Yeah.
He needed that catharsis of doing it after everything this kid's been put through. But for it to stay a positive story and a superhero story, that was not allowed to be the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I think this story is too nuanced and there's too much about who's the hero, who's the villain to allow the kid to carry on down that path.
Yeah.
Because what this story does is it cuts off and it says, no, we're going to break the cycle with this kid.
Yeah.
And that's the entire message behind it, of break the cycle.
And, but
you can't steal the kid's right to fight back either.
And, Deadpool, does the better Jesus than Jesus thing and sacrifices his life to save Russell's soul.
Yeah. And obviously the things with Deadpool and Jesus is a bit of a running gag as well.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm surprised that they haven't had him like just T-posing at some point yet.
That's coming up in the third one.
I'm sure
I'll
that'll
put money
be.
on it. He's very, he's just, yeah. Even with the spear through the side of his head, granted, but the spear in the side, it was not subtle. It was not subtle.
Even if it wasn't technically a spear, it was still very obvious.
Yeah, it was not subtle at all, was it, in amongst the rest of all that religious imagery?
Obviously, Deadpool ultimately does survive this, but like I said, the death scene, he's giving that final, then it goes on and on and on.
Like to the point, it's clearly playing the joke, but it plays the joke so far that you're ready to just die already.
Yeah.
When you play the joke just so far that you want the dying character dead,
you've done it right.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is, people always live just long enough to give that final monologue.
Yeah. And then he's not dead by the end of it, and it's like,
well, that's the thing with Deadpool. He's a motor mouth, so he's gonna get in 10 monologues where one will do. That's the whole, and it is very. God, I was just like, even I just looked at this and I was like, just please die already, please, just.
And he has.
I'm looking at my watch, thinking, the movie over yet? So
and he has a brief moment of happiness in the afterlife with Vanessa,
and then,
and then Cable conveniently uses his last charge to rewind time.
Yeah, and it.
Which, of course, is just bad writing.
That's what I mean about this movie not taking itself too seriously.
Yeah.
It's very. Again, it's one of those where you can do that plot device very well or very badly. The only reason we think it's done so well in Deadpool is because Deadpool is satirizing that plot device.
It's one of the things that it's deliberately done so badly to make it good. You know how certain some things are so bad that it's good. Deadpool's deliberately done it that way.
Well, and I mean, no, seriously, Cable's whole subplot is a satire of Terminator.
Yeah.
Like he shows up in the middle of the field with a couple of rednecks and they're talking about wiping technique.
Yeah. Like the whole thing is just a classic.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't want to touch on something. Obviously, the kid, he does not kill the headmaster.
Yeah.
But you have this horrible villain. Something's got to happen to him.
And
who kills him? Who kills him in the end?
And it looks like Dopinder gets a taste for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Dopinder got a taste for it after the last movie, to be fair, with that cousin of his.
Yeah.
I want to be a I'm not. No, never mind.
No,
he wants to, I want to be a contract killer.
Yeah. I'm so glad you saw
I can see why you'd have the temptation to go there, Ring. No, because
please don't. No,
he's so quotable, but
he is so quotable. But please don't do the accent.
Yeah.
He's just Dopinder is that classic comic relief character.
Yeah.
And again, if you're gonna kill off the villain in that cathartic way, it's got to be done in a way that's totally just fuck reality.
Yeah, and of course, having him spewing his bigoted hate, and then immediately get hit by a taxi,
driven by an Indian guy. Let's just straight up say it. It's the moment where I think the two strains of what this film and what the whole X-Men franchise is about. Of first it was race, then where the two come together.
Yeah.
And it's you are LGBT. This is a race issue, but we're both killing off the bad guy.
And I think it's point for something about this. Dopinder, as far as I can tell, is not a comic. He is a film character. He is a character that is made for these films. What a great character to add to this. Just as like Deadpool's cab driver,
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, it's something you could see Dopinder being put into the comics, couldn't you?
Yeah.
As a result of
you
this.
could.
I mean, I'm not. I don't want to make. It's not really a great comparison to make, but like Batman the animated series.
Yep.
Introduced us all to Harley Quinn. It was not a comic character that came to other media. This was something from like a comic, a cartoon series that people like the character so much. It's like, oh, we've got to put this character into the comics. I could kind of see. I'm not saying Dopinder would ever be like on a level of Harley Quinn, but it could be. It's definitely like, oh, there's something you could do with this character in the comics, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Make him part of the comics sort of lore,
And it is one of those where it's sometimes it just works. It's that moment where the do you know what it is? It's the same. It's got the same sort of vibe as the Jeff Buckley version of Hallelujah.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's better than the original, and the original backs it.
Yeah,
it's that moment of the original was great, but this just elevates it, and it's so good. Even the original creator's gonna go, that's what I wanted this to be.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the thing.
And then of course we get some more catharsis at the end with time travel shenanigans.
I've got. I loved it. I love this because obviously you do the thing with obviously, you get the thing because obviously Negasonic Teenage Warfriend, the girlfriend, you used to travel to, and obviously, you get the saving of Vanessa, and you get the saving of X-Force member Peter, which is great. But then you get the humor where he goes and kills the Deadpool from X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah,
and then kills Ryan Reynolds.
As he's right at the moment he's considering taking the role in Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Like,
the fact that's what I think. The fact that Ryan Reynolds can obviously was the star of that movie and has enough self-awareness to like, I know that movie was bad, and they'll keep going back to it with Deadpool.
And then talking about it.
Well, then Deadpool says, after blowing out Ryan Reynolds' brains all over the Green Lantern script, says, "You're welcome, Canada."
Yep. Like it's what fourth wall?
Yeah.
But I think it's just so typically Deadpool, because isn't Deadpool's whole thing that he knows he's in a comic book or he knows he's in a movie?
Yeah.
That was like he's so meta. He's aware.
Yeah.
So he's aware that he's in a movie of himself, and therefore he's aware that he's Ryan Reynolds playing himself, or is Ryan Reynolds.
Or is Deadpool
it's
playing Ryan Reynolds.
Deadpoolception. Deadpoolception.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he goes back and does this, let's be honest, we all wish that had happened in real life. Like tiny bit. Like that was the audience.
I think even Ryan Reynolds probably wishes that in real life. But
like that was the audience.
Green Lantern is one of the few movies where I'm glad I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I was like, I am aware I'm gonna dislike this. I'm gonna watch it just so I understand quite how shit this is.
Yeah, that's basically what you did there, Sam, is basically what most of my generation did with 50 Shades of Grey. Or with
Oh, I did that. I
Da
did that
Vinci
with 50
Code.
Shades of. I did that with 50 Shades, but I sat on my hands watching 50 Shades, so I didn't punch the TV.
Yeah, you kind of have to, don't you?
Yeah.
But
It's
it's
like,
the same
I
thing
will
with Da Vinci
finish
Code.
this. I will watch this.
That. I know I did it recently with the first episode of Clarice. I was just like, I need to know how bad it actually is, because if I'm going to insult it and if I'm going to say it's bad, I should at least know what I'm talking about.
Shitting on, yeah.
Yeah. Which
This is why I like one of the. I mean, like I said, I said about like the trailer right at the start of this stream. I said that the trailer campaign for Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got to one of the ones he did, is the David Beckham one. Did you ever see that? I mean, because if you're in the first film, Deadpool makes a crack about David Beckham, and there's the scene of it where David Beckham is watching Deadpool and watching the crack that Deadpool makes about him.
Oh yeah,
and he gets a knock on the door from Deadpool, like with the flowers and everything. Like, I'm really sorry, and he keeps getting the door slammed in his face and like.
Oh, it was great. See, I think the adverts for Deadpool 2 are only marginal. Deadpool 2 is only marginally better than the adverts for Deadpool 2.
That's what I said right at the beginning of this stream. I think as far as a trailer campaign, I can't think of anything that is the work been done better as a trailer for the trailer campaign for Deadpool 2.
I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yeah.
The whole point of Deadpool 1 was it was advertised as a Valentine's Day movie, and then it got there, and within the first 5 minutes, I thought this was a rom-com, meta going on there. Deadpool 2 did it again. It advertised itself as a comedy, as, the light-hearted sequel. And then it hit us so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hit us with such depth. It did. It took all expectation that it had built up and it turned it. And you kind of, it caught us a second time.
And that's why I said last week that Deadpool 2 is as good as Deadpool.
Oh, yeah.
But in different ways.
In a way, it is now getting to a point that, because I'm sure there will be a Deadpool 3, but how do they live up to this now?
Deadpool 3 has already been announced to be, I think, filmed in 2022.
Yeah.
And
so basically, wear a mask if you want Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a brilliant argument to bring to people. You want Deadpool 3, wear a fucking mask.
Yeah. How they're going to live up to the first two is going to be really,
especially under the House of Mouse.
They've got a challenge to live up to.
I mean, in fairness, the House of Mouse have allowed Ryan Reynolds to make it R-rated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just hope Ryan Reynolds has still got the same level of creative control in the edit.
True.
Yeah.
Because it's the edit that's going to make or break this movie.
That's something you got to say about, as obviously Ryan Reynolds has had a lot to do with like the writing and with the development of this.
He was one of the writers.
Got to say he totally understands the character to the point where I could not see anyone else playing Deadpool.
Deadpool doesn't play. Surprised. Ryan Reynolds doesn't play Deadpool. Deadpool plays Ryan Reynolds.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Reynolds' birth certificate reads Wade Wilson.
Like Deadpool's is like Ryan Reynolds is not. Ryan Reynolds is not the actor. Deadpool's the actor. Ryan Reynolds is the character.
Also,
Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool's alter ego.
Last bit of Jesus comparison. Passion of the Christ, Deadpool. At least domestically, we slaughtered them worldwide.
It wasn't even subtle, was it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
see,
it was just
Deadpool. I think Deadpool 2 might even have topped Deadpool for me.
Yeah.
I think it might
Yeah.
actually have been better.
I mean, as a thinking movie, yeah. I think
Yeah.
for me, if you want to laugh and a giggle and you want something easy, Deadpool 1.
Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want something that's going to engage you a bit more and give you something to think
Yeah.
about, Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
And
think
if you want something pragmatically useful, the short where Deadpool explains to you how to test for cancer, how to check for testicular cancer.
But I think obviously Deadpool, the first Deadpool movie, is because I think a lot of these comic book movies, especially if they're going to do an origin story, they kind of are. I mean, they are playing to a wider audience that probably doesn't read comics.
Yeah.
All of these movies kind of are doing that. So, which is perhaps why with superhero movies you do get so many origin stories.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing was, it was like the first Deadpool movie. It was like Deadpool was like it was almost a thing amongst comic book fans. It was our little secret kind of thing,
Yeah.
It was our great little secret, whilst all the other superhero movies were getting made, and yet when it was announced we were finally getting the Deadpool movie, and part of you's like, okay, do we, we're worried about what this is going to mean.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is disappointed with the result.
Well, yeah, there was the
first
whole worry that they'd force a PG-13.
Yeah.
And then they had that thing where either Ryan Reynolds or the director was, on late night TV or something.
This has got to be an R movie, yeah.
No. It was like how they announced that Deadpool is actually going R. Is, it was like the Late Show or something like that. And they're talking about, oh yeah, we're, appealing to a wider audience or something. And then Deadpool shows up and shoots either Ryan Reynolds or the director, or, whoever was in the chair. And he's like, it's gonna be rated R, and then walks off the screen.
That's how you do it.
That is how you do it.
Like that one and the advert with Deadpool of, dear parents, no, your little snot-nosed can't watch this movie. Like, really driving the point home of little angel. This movie is not for your little angel.
Yeah.
See, I actually had to tell my little brother, who is 11, the other day that he's not allowed to sit and watch Deadpool with me. And it's like, I will let my 13-year-old brother sit and watch Deadpool with me.
But 11's a bit...
Yeah. Especially since the 11-year-old still thinks screaming is an appropriate way to get his own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of need to get them past that stage first. I mean, I would have probably seen Deadpool quite young, but then as we've established on these streams, when you show an 8-year-old the uncut game of death, there's not really anywhere else to go. Thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
I watched the first Deadpool. I don't even remember when it came out.
You're kidding me. I saw Fred's as a kid. Okay, so
final thoughts.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant movie. It develops obviously the fact that there is a bit more of there's a serious undertone to Deadpool 2 that perhaps isn't necessarily there with the first one because of the subject matters, yet somehow manages to it's going to be a weird way of putting it, that could do humor on these kind of topics and it not be completely in bad taste, which is really weird because Deadpool is in a way is supposed to be slightly in bad taste, but It's a masterful piece of filmmaking, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think fantastic film. A lot to think about, a lot to talk about. I can't wait for them to complete the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
And
And
wait till we get Deadpool 3.
yeah,
I think between the Deadpool franchise and the John Wick franchise, we are being a little bit spoiled by our anti-hero offerings in cinema over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
This is true. Anti-heroes have become potentially even a better genre than heroes.
Yeah, because there's so much more you can do with them.
And I will say it, the first Deadpool is a better popcorn flick. Deadpool 2, it has more meat to it. And so I will say I kind of like Deadpool 2 better.
Yeah. Again, it depends what kind of mood you're in. If I'm in the mood to sit down and watch a Monty Python sketch, should I be sitting down and watching Deadpool 2? No.
No. Don't do that.
Or if I'm in a depressive spiral, maybe Deadpool 2 is not the movie for me.
Yeah.
But unless you need to be completely deconstructed and build your brain back up.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Deadpool 2 is one of those movies that if you've never seen it, which if you've got this far into the stream and you've never seen it, but what were you doing? You could have watched it by now, But it's one of those movies that I think, to a certain extent, at least the generation it was released into, has a duty to watch.
Yeah.
In the same way you kind of have a duty to watch films like Schindler's List or Shooting Dogs or, even Titanic to an extent. You have a duty to watch these films because they tell a human story.
Titanic is the only one of those I've actually seen.
But you know what I mean? Like, you have certain war films come out and you hear everybody's saying there was a duty to watch things like 12 Years a Slave or Roots.
Yeah.
This movie has a truth in it that you really need to expose yourself to.
So you heard it here first. Deadpool 2 is the Schindler's List of the 20 teens.
Not quite that far. Not that far.
As Deadpool himself would say about Titanic, as you mentioned it, draw me like one of your French girls.
See, I think the thing is that with Deadpool 2, I think Deadpool has very much helped people in my generation come to accept the found family archetype more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that matters, especially in your generation and sort of the generation that came before you, my generation we were the first generation where these issues of sexuality and gender really hit the headlines.
Yeah.
Those issues were the headline issues of our generations. And this movie, I think, it's going to be one of those movies that you can always date to its time.
Yeah.
Yep.
You will always look at this movie and say, yes, that was released in the middle of the scandal about the church and Jimmy Savile and all the rest of it. And that was released, right in the middle or right at the back end of the fight for equal rights and fight for same-sex marriage and all the rest of it. You will always be able to say that. But there is a truth that goes deeper than that. And the found family for LGBT folks is such an important aspect of the way we live our lives. Because we are that demographic that learns from a young age that your family are not necessarily the people who have, 8 pints of blood that are a little bit similar to yours.
Yeah.
And movies like this that really show you that found family growing matters so much to that demographic.
Yeah. And so let's move on to shilling. Sam?
So, in theory, later today, but possibly tomorrow, I have a video coming out about pronouns.
Ooh.
And then besides that, within the next few weeks, I should, in theory, be releasing the first episode of mine, Godless Sewing Will. And my friend at Science Side Up, Maddie, we're doing a podcast called Pub Religion.
Nice.
First episode of that should be out in the next few weeks.
Cool.
Okay, for me, maybe might possibly be doing a Twitter stream this week. Looking for some stupidity on Twitter. I've had one suggestion, although I just had a quick glance through it. I'm not necessarily sure there's enough to work with, but if anybody's got some suggestions of some fucking idiots to cover on Twitter, I'm open to them. If not, I might just do a hangout this week if anyone's about. I don't know. Next Sunday, myself and I'll be on Noodles' channel, I believe. It's Noodles' turn to host.
Yeah.
We'll be doing Asterix in the Falling Sky.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's a controversial one if it's on Noodles' channel?
Probably.
I mean, in some ways.
It is, but maybe not necessarily for the reasons you might think.
Yeah.
It's quite political, let's put it that way. There's
It's
definitely a political undertone to this one.
Yeah. And now, this is a weird situation we're dealing with because Noodles read this and I haven't. It's got to be a first.
Yeah, I've read it and Scummer hasn't. So
yeah,
I can't wait for you to read this and react to this, you know.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Okay, cool. So I'm already looking forward to this. Other than that, I've got my Patreon, whatever. I'm trying to do some stuff on there. I am obviously looking to try and get some more one-on-one interviews with people as well. So I'm trying to do that with my channel as well. So
I mean, we've said a couple of times you want to try and drag me on at some point, but
yeah,
it's always one of those things. It's getting round to a lot of things. But I'll just show you a little very quick little joke to finish off. This is one of my Deadpool comics, and the scene here is he is being caught playing with his toys, his action figure toys of himself and whatever. And
playing with himself, Jeff.
He's playing with himself, yeah. Negasonic Teenage Warhead comes in. I was just meditating, and we've got this little one here with. Hey, is this troll doll supposed to be me? And his response is, "You're too low profile to have your own action figure. It's a custom." We'll leave it at that.
Fantastic. Cool. So, in the same vein as Sam is theoretically releasing a pronouns video and theoretically doing other things, theoretically I should be playing Death Stranding tomorrow night. Theoretically, at this point, should be. There's no reason why not to as of yet, but who knows? Because we know what life does. But I want to because it's fun and you get to watch me confuse myself. I think is the gentle way of putting that. I'm not competent. But that's half the fun. You get to point and laugh at me and watch me and listen to me. Like, I was very good in the last stream. I didn't swear much. I don't think I swore at all. Which, yeah, I was very good. But yeah, come and watch me make a tit of myself. That should just be the tagline for those streams. Just come and watch me make a tit of myself. I always appreciate anyone who pops in. It's good for a laugh, if nothing else. So yeah, if you've got nothing to do tomorrow night, drop in, say hi.
And of course, I plugged it at the beginning. I'll go ahead and plug it at the end. Jen has a fundraiser going. There is a link in the description. Also, I theoretically have another Dungeons and Divinity coming out that I've been, teasing for God knows how long, but I just haven't had the spoons or schedule to put it together yet. As usual, on Saturday, there's secular D&D, provided we don't have a situation like yesterday where everyone just kind of needed a break. And next month on Media Musings is Rock Opera Month, and the results from the poll are in. The Patreon poll was balanced, so basically the two patron votes canceled each other out.
Okay. So we're down to the Twitter poll.
Yep, and the Twitter poll says we're starting off with Tommy and Hero. So next week we will be discussing Tommy by The Who.
Means I'm going to have to get up to it on that. I'm going to have to get up to date that. I know some of the songs, obviously, but
I know Heroes on Spotify. I don't know if Tommy is.
Yeah.
It's the same actually. Unfortunately, I think we got rid of the old LP my mother used to have, which was a bit more more orchestral sort of thing of it. It's a very rare version, Rod Stewart's version of Pinball Wizard, which is not as good as the Who's or even Elton John's version.
The album for it is the Who album is on Spotify.
Okay, good.
For Tommy.
Yeah.
Also, the original Broadway is on there.
But
yeah, original Broadway cast is on there. The 93 and 94 album.
So with that, we'll move to taglines. Sam?
Have a day, and remember, communication is key.
Noodle?
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, use your noodle.
Scummer?
May all of your stains be large ones. Salute.
And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a selfie stick, so don't choke on it.